Part 137. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 1366. The patient's subjective wishes do not cooperate with the treatment, and the degree of compliance is not high. Greet remained silent, maintaining a polite smile, but silently made a note in his heart. He had seen many such situations in the past. Especially patients who have been ill for a long time have lost hope and are dragged around by their family members. I went to one hospital after another, had one examination after another, changed medicines again and again, and even had more than one operation. But what they faced was only disappointment again and again, as well as the sad sighs and forced smiles of their families. Over time, it is common for patients to lose confidence and not want to continue treatment. He buried these thoughts in his stomach and stood quietly beside him. He even took a step back to give the mother and son space to talk privately while observing the eldest prince's every move. In the Emerald Dream, the image each person presents is closely related to their own self-perception and expectations, and does not necessarily have to be the same as the physical form. And this eldest prince, in the Emerald Dream, is a completely adult image, tall and majestic, and full of energy in every move he makes. Obviously, he very much hopes to grow up normally, act normally, and assume the responsibilities of an adult elf normally. If we start from this point, maybe we can still persuade him to accept treatment. But it's hard to say. If he could have persuaded him, his mother would have done so. Gretel waited silently for a moment, then saw the eldest prince smiling like a child, holding his mother's hand and shaking it twice. Then he turned around and bowed slightly to him. Mage Gretel Nordmark. His smile was bright and pleasant, like the warm sun in winter, shining golden and softly and comfortably. As he spoke, he took a step forward and reached out to him. I've heard of you. I took a look at your healing skills, which are very interesting. On the battlefield that day, thanks to your large-scale healing skills, many compatriots were saved. I should thank you very much. This is what I should do. Gretel shook hands with him vigorously, feeling the powerful force coming from his palm, and sighed secretly again. This strength must be at least knight level. Prince Anio, his requirements or expectations for himself are really not low. How great it would be if his physical body could be cured, or at least, adjusted to the point where it could support his movements without being trapped in the Emerald Dream all the time. Gretel sighed silently. The eldest prince already smiled and said, Master Nordmark, since my mother has asked you to come and treat me, let's get started. You can ask any questions. If I have any questions that I don't understand, my mother and other healers can answer you. No, wait. The so-called inspection, auscultation, percussion, and consultation, if you give me a spiritual body from the Emerald Dream, the first three are all useless. If you call me for consultation like this, where should I start? Gray gathered his composure, quickly organized his words, and began to ask. When did you get sick? How do people feel? Feeling tired? Can't run or jump? Do you faint easily when you are slightly tired? It sounds like a heart attack, just listening to the description won't do it. Various tests are needed. Is there any way for me to listen to your heartbeat? The heartbeat in the natural state is not sealed and the heart does not beat for a long time. Greet asked hesitantly. He also knew that the price of this request was very high. Being sealed in an ancient tree meant that one's physiological functions were reduced to a minimum, and one's life depended entirely on the ancient tree. At this time, we are required to listen to the heartbeat in the natural state and perform a series of examinations. Every minute and every second consumes the patient's vitality and brings him one step closer to death. Of course, I don't want to listen right away. I'll wait until I finish chewing these scrolls. It's best to complete the required examinations as quickly as possible. Unlocking the seal will be very harmful to the body. To his surprise, The eldest prince smiled and raised his hand to interrupt him. The light on his fingertips flickered, and for a moment, his whole body lit up, and his body began to twist and change. If you only need an approximate result, then there is no need to unlock the seal. Come on, give it a try. Can you listen to the current situation and check it? At the end of the last sentence, the twisted and changing figure has become fixed. His height has dropped, his figure has shrunk, and standing there is clearly the pale boy that Gretel saw in the seal of the ancient tree. Last month, I just unlocked the seal once, and I am still very familiar with the physical condition. If there is no deliberate interference, the physical condition will be projected into the emerald dream, and it should look like this. After just saying these two sentences, his lips began to turn slightly purple and he was obviously out of breath. Gretel quickly took a step forward and looked down, only to see that the eldest prince's fingertips were beginning to turn purple. Gretel was stunned. Can you still play like this? Is it possible to use mental projection to simulate an entity in the emerald dream? How can such a body still show signs of cyanosis? Hey, so can such a body really have a heartbeat, blood flow, breathing, and everything he needs? Gretel apologized and concentrated slightly. He was familiar with the method of condensing entities in the emerald dream. He stretched out his hand for a moment, and there was a heavy stethoscope in his hand. Compared with various magics, the results obtained by the stethoscope should be more direct, more reliable, and less affected by mental power. If the stethoscope yields results, he proceeds to the next step. If you can't hear it clearly, forget it and try to check reality. He apologized to the eldest prince, asked him to sit down, and pressed the stethoscope chest piece against his chest. Bang, bang, the familiar heartbeat came, chaotic and rapid. The second heart sound of the pulmonary valve is absent, left sternal border, systolic ejection murmur. There is definitely a heart problem, Gretel sighed. The queen nodded helplessly. Yes, that's what the healers say. But it can't be cured, even if you use the limited wishing technique to wish for him to have a healthy heart, there's nothing you can do. It can't be cured at all. His heart, the problem is very complicated. Gretel frowned more and more as he listened. Put down the stethoscope, raise your hand, and the electrocardiogram cloud screen lights up. The eldest prince smiled immediately. Do you want an electrocardiogram? Wait a minute, sorry, I didn't mean to pry into your secrets. It was the day you activated the healing technique through the magic circle. I was controlling the magic circle, and I happened to see it. As he spoke, he lay down on his own and his clothes disappeared quietly. The brilliance on the body surface flickered for a while, returning to the color of normal skin, and waved to Gretel. Come on, it's okay. The electrocardiogram probe fell gently. Under the expectant gazes of Gretel and the queen, they landed on the exact location one by one. The cloud screen flashes, flashes, flashes. Nothing is displayed. Alas, it seems that the mapping of mental power to the human body is not as detailed as the level of cell myoelectricity. Thanks to Etye Mengbing for the 10,000 starting coins. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geolan 2020. Chapter 1367. The EKG failed sadly. Gretel gritted his teeth and used the second magic weapon, X-ray. This thing doesn't do much, but at least it can check the size of the heart and so on, so it's easy to confirm. Unfortunately, the light activated by detection magic could not penetrate Anio's body at all. The eldest prince smiled regretfully at Gretel. Sorry, my body is made of mental power, and its strength is equivalent to my mental power. In other words, it's legendary level strength, right? If the light source used in detect magic is not a large span higher than the legend, it will not be able to illuminate it at all, right? Greet retreated sadly. After thinking for a while, he could only close his eyes silently, retrieve a paper on B ultrasound from the meditation core, and materialize it before sending it to the eldest prince. Well, I want to try if I can use this spell to observe your heart. The eldest prince showed an understanding smile. He took the paper, flipped through it quickly, and then spread his hands to Gretel. He leaned back and lay down again. Greet carefully went up to apply the B ultrasound coupling agent and applied a thin layer to his chest. Open your 5 fingers and press them gently to activate the spell. As the fingers moved, a vigorously beating heart gradually appeared in Gretel's meditative vision. This heart problem is much more serious than that of little Avril Lavigne back then. Right ventricular hypertrophy. Greet's lips moved silently, counting one by one silently in his heart. Ventricular septal defect, aorta, aorta. What's going on with the aorta? Forgive him for his lack of academic skills. He has seen too few cardiac color Doppler ultrasounds. With just one color Doppler ultrasound, he cannot construct this pile of blood vessels that are twisting around and obviously not right in the meditation field of vision. In short, it is a very troublesome situation. Coupled with the disappearance of the second heart sound of the pulmonary valve heard during auscultation, Gretel could only think of one symptom. Pulmonary stenosis and aortic straddling and ventricular septal defect and right ventricular hypertrophy. Conclusion: Tetralogy of Fallot. Once you have the direction, it is much easier to follow the map. Gretel followed the diagram and carefully scanned the aorta, pulmonary artery, pulmonary vein, superior and inferior vena cava, and the inflow and outflow blood vessels, and took a long breath. Aortic straddle, really aortic straddle. It seems that there are other deformities, but if these 4 conditions are met, it is already full-blown tetralogy of Fallot. In other words, one of the most difficult conditions in congenital heart disease. In Gretel's previous life, when he was about to time travel, it was said that Union Hospital could reduce the probability of death from this disease during surgery to 1%, but that was Union Hospital. We have the best cardiothoracic team, the best extracorporeal circulation team, and the best critical care team. After many years of training, I still can't say that I am immortal, I can only say that the probability of death is 1%. Gretel only has himself. At this moment, Gretel almost thought of leaving the patient behind and running away. Well, he doesn't treat this disease. He sees the patient still alive, so he goes to treat it. If he goes for treatment, the mortality rate is not 100%, but probably 99%. Greet's fingertips trembled, but before they left the eldest prince's chest, he suddenly pressed them down again, frowning. If it is just tetralogy of Fallot, even if it cannot be cured, you can still seek help from the elders. For example, use the limited wishing technique to wish let the eldest prince have a healthy heart. At last, you can also carefully draw the structural diagram of a healthy heart, accurate to the cellular level, and then make a wish let the eldest prince have a heart like this. But what he saw with ultrasound was obviously more than that. What are those scattered, cord-like, abnormal low-density shadows and high-density shadows in the myocardium and valves? Not like a cyst, not like a calcification, not like anything he'd ever seen. To be honest, it's a bit like the crystallization of the gallbladder wall, but it's a bit different. It's a bit like the fibrosis of the liver and lungs, but it's not quite right either. His brows furrowed tighter and tighter, and the queen stood next to him with bated breath, watching every subtle change in his expression, not daring to say a word. On the other hand, the eldest prince was lying on his back on the bed, looking at Gretel with a slight smile on his lips, not worried at all. When Greet withdrew his palm, he sat up leisurely and looked down at his chest and abdomen. How about it? I have an idea at the moment, but I'm not sure. Gretel took a deep breath, raised his hand, and summoned a patch of light and shadow to create the appearance of 2 hearts. One is normal and one is malformed. Currently, it seems that your heart is likely to look like this. He pointed at the two pieces of light and shadow and explained to the queen and the eldest prince in detail, this is the left atrium, left ventricle, right atrium, right ventricle, your heart is missing a piece here compared to the normal heart. Fortunately, he had worked hard on congenital heart disease for a period of time and had seen a number of cases. He had also turned over the relevant contents of internal medicine and memorized them countless times. At this moment, he talked endlessly about the light and shadow, without even searching for reference books in his memory. What systemic circulation and pulmonary circulation, what hemodynamics, what left and right ventricular pressures, what blood oxygen saturation. Just pick it up at your fingertips, no need to think about it at all. The queen and the eldest prince listened intently and felt that a lot of the information was unheard and sounded very reasonable, so they couldn't help but nod their heads. Until Greet finished speaking in one breath, the two people's eyes met and they were silent for a long time. After a long while, the queen let out a long breath. So, can it be cured? I still need to complete some more checks, but I can't do it now, Gretel whispered. If it is really tetralogy of Fallot, there are quite a lot of tests that need to be done before it can be cured. Blood tests, CT, MRI, angiography, cardiac catheterization. Without a clear understanding of the heart condition, there is no way to determine a treatment plan. Moreover, he has not yet figured out the origins of those strange shadows in the eldest prince's heart. Then you plan slowly, don't be in a hurry. Prince Anio smiled and stood up. In an instant, his body changed and returned to his previous adult appearance. After all, I've been here for so many years, so there's no rush. Take your time and don't push yourself too hard. This is what it means to see off guests. Gretel bowed to him and allowed the queen to lead him out of the emerald dream. Alas, everything that can be checked has been checked, and there is nothing else that can be done. His own ability is limited to this for the time being. Gretel took a copy of the treatment record and said goodbye. Not long after returning to the laboratory, a female elf with a fluttering white skirt came to visit carrying a basket of fresh fruits. Are you, the mage Nordmark? She gently put down the fruit, with a hint of sadness between her brows. How is my brother's illness? Can it be cured? The last 3 days of the month. Please give me monthly votes, please give me monthly votes, please give me monthly votes. The cat is asking if he can get 5,000 votes this month. Thanks to @Scarlacy and @HoHoHolies for the 100 starting coins. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geolan 2020. Chapter 1368. Brother, is actually much better than us. After listening to Gretel's explanation, Princess Norel's eyes were filled with confusion and she let out a long sigh. She turned her head and looked far away, her eyes wandering, reflecting the towering world tree on the top of the mountain. Even though he was seriously ill and had to sleep in the Emerald Dream all year round, he never stopped studying and researching. Until now, I haven't touched the edge of legend yet, and his mental power has already reached legend. Gretel really wanted to say, after all, he is older than you, 10 years. 20 years old. Or dozens of years old. When the words came to his mouth, he swallowed them back. Not to mention that being able to reach legend in the Emerald Dream is really very powerful, indeed much more powerful than this princess. What position does he have to persuade the other party? Besides, who is this princess to him? Senior brother Baebo has had a chat with him. Although it was just a guess and there was no evidence, he did not dare to ask anyone, but, no matter what thoughts or regrets the other party has, it seems that they are not something he can persuade. He just kept smiling, smiling, and smiling. He calmed down, leaned forward slightly, and listened to Princess Norrell. Not only does he study magic, martial arts, and exercise mental strength in the Emerald Dream, he also often assists his mother in doing things. My brother has made suggestions for many of my mother's tasks, and sometimes he also participates in discussions among the elders. He sounds like a very capable heir to the throne. Except for being in bad health. Greet sighed softly. In any case, a prince who has been sleeping all year round and sealed in an ancient tree, no matter how strong he is not suitable to inherit the throne. Moreover, with his body, it seems that he can't pass on heirs. By the way, there isn't something wrong with the prince's genes, right? Among all my mother's children, only my brother is currently able to take over the magic circle on Yangju Island. Neither my sister nor I can do it, and my younger brother is even worse. That magic circle is not legendary, so there is no need to even think about it. The queen gave birth to 4 children. Gretel was silently speechless. Considering the fertility rate of elves, this number is already too high, isn't it too much? But whether there are 4 or a few, it is already extremely difficult to find an advanced legend among the single-digit candidates who can control the Yangju Island magic circle. Now one has finally appeared, but he has a physical problem and can only be sealed all year round. So either I or my sister can only keep working hard and dare not stop for a moment. If my brother cannot be cured, then one of me, my sister, or my younger brother will have to take over the responsibility of mother. Princess Norrell's eyes were melancholy and her tone was soft. Gretel nodded in understanding and suddenly realized. In other words, this princess must stay on the island of eternal meeting in order to one day become the queen of elves? Why leave with your lover, linger with you till the end of the world, marry somewhere far away? Don't even think about it? Of course, if His Royal Highness the Prince can be cured, he will be the natural heir to the throne. At that time, the princess can escape and do whatever she likes. Hey, if you put it this way, wouldn't it be possible for her to leave Evergem Island and go to Nevis to pursue her teacher? Maybe I will have one more mistress? Gretel held her chin in silence. Although the teacher's personal affairs shouldn't concern him, it would be quite good if he could facilitate this matter. Worst of all, having an elf princess go to Nevis would be a great thing for the parliament. He made up his mind and refreshed himself. Pulling the chair under him, he explained to Princess Norrell. I have some ideas about His Royal Highness's illness, but there are still many things that need to be improved. There is a method of examination that I have an idea for, but I don't know how to do it. I need to ask some elders for advice. Who do I need to ask? Princess Norrell was indeed extremely concerned. Among the elders on Yangju Island, are there any whom you are not familiar with, or whom it is not convenient for you to ask for advice? If necessary, I can introduce them to you. Well, I may need a great mage of the evocation system. Gretel hesitated. While talking, he gestured. One must be able to play with magnetic fields, or be able to convert electricity and magnetic fields, and control extremely strong magnetic fields very close to the human body without hurting people, and one must be able to understand the internal conditions of the human body through the vibration of the magnetic field. When he spoke the first sentence, Princess Norrell was thoughtful, as if she was counting the legendary elders on Evermeet Island. When the second sentence came out, the princess looked troubled. Obviously, the conversion of electricity and magnetic field is a new topic, and it is not so smooth for the time being on Everlasting Island. After the third sentence was spoken, the princess's eyes flickered, and she suddenly became happy again. The joy was fleeting, but Gretel clearly saw it, and she quickly glanced toward the northeast. Across the rolling blue waves and across the new world, this line extends to the end, which is the direction of Nevis. You were right. Greet secretly praised it in his heart. I just want to ask the teacher to take action and get an MRI done. When it comes to playing with electricity, the teacher is second in the parliament, but no one dares to be the first. On the new topic of electromagnetic conversion, the only one who can play the best in Nevis is the teacher. Even if you can't invite him to come over for medical treatment, no, you can invite him to serve as a humanoid MRI device, communicate remotely, and ask him to develop an MRI technology. I guess it should be possible. In any case, the teacher will not beat me just because I am asked to do work. On Everlasting Island, there may not be any elders who can meet your requirements, at present. Sure enough, Princess Norrell said hesitantly. Your Excellency, Lord of Thunder, is famous for controlling thunder and lightning. I wonder if he can do it? Or, can he participate in the research? I don't know. Gretel spread out his hands confidently. Teacher should be participating in senior brother's research on restarting the Well of Eternity, or, in other words, researching the mystery of the Well of Eternity. Or ask him to do this. I wonder if he is free. I'll go ask him. The princess quickly stood up. Vicky bit her red lips, hesitated for a moment, and spoke faster and faster. I'm going to ask my mother for permission. In the name of the royal family, or the name of Eternal Judgment Island, please ask him to participate. In this way, he should agree, right? If he doesn't agree, the parliament will persuade him to agree. Greet thought silently. It's hard to say whether to come to Evergem Island, but it shouldn't be difficult to participate in research and development. Of course, I have to ask you to write a paper in advance to explain the general direction of this magic and its indispensable uses. Princess Norrell's wonderful eyes moved, staring at Greet, with a praying face. I'm just waiting for you. If you finish it here, I'll go ask Mother immediately. Please vote for me. It's been the last 3 days. Have you seen the mark on the monthly ticket? Vote for the cat. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 1369. The Lord of Thunder has been a little annoyed lately. No, it should be quite annoying. The study of secret minerals has made his understanding of the nature of matter and energy advance rapidly. Continuous new discoveries and new understandings push up his strength and bring him close to a new limit. However, the changes required to advance from the first level of legend to the second level of legend are not inferior to the one step that a half-step legend takes to become a legend. This advancement process is best not to be carried out in the Igor mystery, or it is best to be at a considerable distance from Nevis to avoid shaking the entire mystery at the peak. It is best to have someone to protect you, preferably 2 or more legends, to avoid being attacked during the advancement process. The time required to advance can range from 3 to 5 days to half a month, or even longer. The Lord of Thunder calculated left and right, before and after, and felt that asking 2 or more legends to leave Nevis to protect him for 3 to 5 days to half a month would weaken the defense power of the Parliament a bit. How many legends should be brought back from a very far away place or from a different space? Those legends who are not on duty in Nevis are either doing their own research, exploring, opening up, competing for various resources for the Council, and fighting with their opponents to the death. A legend is an army and a huge vein of minerals. It cannot be transferred back unless absolutely necessary. So, does he want to leave on his own, go far away, to a place where the glory Holy Sea can't reach, for example, near Dragon Island, and then advance? In that case, not only would one owe the Dragon clan a huge favor, but research near Dragon Island would not be as convenient as in Nevis. While he was struggling, communication from the Elves came again from the Tower of Babel. This time, the Lord of Thunder was able to face the image over there calmly, and his eyes were filled with sadness and joy. Kristen, please help us. We really I hope my brother can recover. The Lord of Thunder sat quietly at his desk and played the video again and again and again. It wasn't until the swan wing-shaped latte art gradually dispersed in the coffee cup that he waved away the image and began to read the information and papers that came with the image. The magnetic field passes through the water body or the tissue containing moisture, and will feed back different signals. The higher the water content, the stronger the signal. Using this principle, we can construct a stable magnetic field and oscillate slightly, collect the feedback signals and analyze them, and we can analyze the conditions of human tissues. The Lord of Thunder frowned slightly. Little Greet, this kid, didn't understand one project before he jumped to the next one. How can you make progress in magic research if your temperament is not stable at all? If it weren't for the fact that he had just successfully advanced and was growing at a pretty good rate, the Lord of Thunder would have almost sent a message to the kid to give him a good scolding. When laying the foundation, lay the foundation well, and when doing projects, do the projects well. Don't look at the heights of one mountain and the other. Every project is good. Fortunately, the little guy still has some self-awareness. If he can't handle the project, he just gives up and throws it into the teacher's hands. Hey, why does it feel so weird? Whose child is brave enough to throw the project into the teacher's hands? Generally speaking, aren't there projects that the teacher can't finish, broken down one by one, and thrown to the disciples? Roaring in his heart, the Lord of Thunder still tilted his head slightly. Around him, the small world quietly opened up, covering the entire study. The huge force field carried by the legendary mage smoothed out the chaotic and intertwined forces in the study one by one and integrated them into a stable and regular electric field. Then, he tightened his index finger to little finger and spread his thumb. A bright electric light jumped out, lingering between the palms of the fingers, and a shadowless and invisible magnetic field followed. Immediately afterwards, the iron cage in the corner of the study room opened, and a panicked mouse squeaked, flew out of the iron cage, and fell into the magnetic field. Alas, since when did he also keep a cage of mice in his study, and when he needed to do experiments, he just caught one out? The Lord of Thunder sighed slightly, then closed his eyes and concentrated. The electric light in the palm beats gently, causing the magnetic field to change. It seems, as if, you can really receive something? However, with such messy and fuzzy signals, it is really not easy to see clearly the human tissue. Does the magnetic field need to be strengthened? Or weakened? To what extent is it enhanced? To what extent is it weakened? Within what range should the amplitude of magnetic field oscillations be controlled? Why does the magnetic field pass through the part with water and receive such a signal? What is its principle and how can it be used? Also, this mouse is a bit too noisy. The Lord of Thunder had many complicated thoughts in his heart. With a slight negligence, the mouse exploded with a pop sound and died miserably. The Lord of Thunder shook his head slightly, clapped his palms, and wiped away the non-existent blood foam. The electric field turned and burned the remains of the mouse to ashes, and he began to write a letter to his disciple. As you said, this project does have the value of detailed research. However, the research work has been busy recently, and I am afraid that there is not much energy that can be allocated to this project. I am going to let you, Senior Sister Philby, participate in the research. The letter from the Lord of Thunder quickly reached the hands of Gretel, Princess Norrell, and the Elf Queen. After going around in a circle, the reply from the elves came again. This project is very important to us. We hope you can participate in person. It would be great if you could come to Yangju Island. For this, we can give enough sincerity. The Lord of Thunder put the letter in his pocket and went to visit the person in charge of the Nevis defense system, Mr. Steiner, Time Barrier. After explaining everything in detail, the old man was overjoyed. This is a good opportunity. It just so happens that you are looking for a place to advance, and you need someone to help guard you. Go, just go. So, the defense of Nevis. Let me think about it. The old man clenched one hand into a fist and supported his chin, while the other hand moved back and forth on the table, like moving invisible chess pieces on a map. After clicking for a while, he leaned back and crossed his fingers. Since they are not familiar with Igor's mystery lock, and it is impossible for them to control the mystery lock's core, I hope that 2 elf legends can take over your defense work while you are away. Well, 3 is better. That. Okay, leave this matter to me and I'll talk about it. Your Excellency. Time Barrier waved his hand inexplicably. It is inconvenient for you to come forward. I will come forward on behalf of the Parliament, which is more equal. Don't worry, we will definitely reach a good result. He pushed the Lord of Thunder out of the office, held his chin, and laughed for a while before contacting the Babel Tower spirit. Hey, I hope Christine will have a good result when she goes there this time. Go alone, but never come back alone again. 1089 monthly tickets yesterday. The cat is scared, meow. Thank you all very much. I'm just a little greedy. Today there are 5,280 monthly tickets. Is it possible to reach 6,000 by the end of the month? The cat crosses its 2 padded paws, saying goodbye and asking for votes. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geolan 2020. Chapter 1370. You want 3 legends to come over. Faced with the news from Nevis, the queen fell into a long silence. After a long while, she turned to her children and whispered. What do you think? It's not necessary, mother. In the ancient tree, the voice of Prince Anio came vaguely. Even though he was sealed, his tone was still gentle, with a slight smile. If it can be guaranteed to be cured, then forget it. However, sending 3 legends just to improve one of the inspections is too overwhelming and it is really unnecessary. Don't say that. Tears suddenly poured into the queen's eyes. She leaned forward and placed her thin white fingers on the emerald seal, pressing her nails until they turned white. Don't say that. For you, in order to cure you, Mom, I can do anything, Mom, I can pay any price. It is indeed not difficult to send 3 legends to the entire Yangju Island. However, narrowing the scope to the elf royal family, it would be very difficult to send 3 legends, not including the queen. If you want to send 3 legends to Nevis for the royal family's private affairs, or to treat the eldest prince, it will take at least 3 to 5 years. Not to mention the royal family's treasury, the queen's private treasury is destined to be emptied. The queen was still hesitant at first. After all, she had more than one child, Anio, so she had to leave something for the other children. But at this moment, hearing her son's laughing voice, the queen instantly made up her mind. Don't worry. I just want to invite a few legends. Mom can afford them. That's not the case, Mother. Anio's smiling voice sounded again. My clan avoided the New World and came to Everlasting Island. We just don't want to get involved in the internal fighting among humans. We sent a few legends there. If the Holy Sea of Glory comes over, will they take action or not? Don't get the clan involved again because of me. The queen's eyes were dim with tears, and she could barely see her son's eyes through the emerald seal. Beside her, Princess Norrell took a step sideways, held her mother's shoulders, and whispered. It won't come to that, brother. We can discuss the order and method of taking action. Even if it comes to a last resort, there are still many ways to conceal one's identity. And dash. She leaned forward, placed her hands on the emerald seal, and gently pressed her forehead against her brother's forehead across the seal. We all hope you will be well, brother. Your recovery to health is the most important thing to Mother, to me, to all of us, and transcends everything else. Yes, brother. The second princess and the little prince also came up, surrounded the seal, and gently touched the huge piece of jade. You can get better, which is more important than anything else. The eldest prince was silent for a long time. In the tree hole, there seemed to be a gentle wind blowing gently, brushing the queen's hair and Princess Norrell's cheek. After a while, the eldest prince's tone relaxed a little. This can only be used as a last resort. If there are other ways to investigate and determine my situation, then there is really no need to send a few legends there. We will definitely confirm it. It was rare that the eldest son was no longer stubborn. The queen breathed a sigh of relief and quickly agreed. After leaving the ancient tree, she found Gretel's papers again, turned them over and studied them for a long time. However, looking at it, I can't see the possibility of researching it without finding the counterpart legend. Please ask my daughter to talk to him. Other inspection methods. Greet pondered for a moment. He rearranged his plan and answered seriously. There is a way to ensure that the most detailed information can be obtained without the teacher coming over. However, I'm afraid it will be more difficult for you to accept. In fact, I still hope that the Lord of Thunder will come. Princess Norrell whispered in her heart. She leaned forward slightly, met Gretel's clear eyes, and said softly. What method? As long as the information is detailed and accurate, in fact, our acceptance level is not that low. Even if you raise animals on a virgin island, cut them up, and do experiments on them every day, we all accept it. There is also a group of elves who follow you and cut up animals every day. No matter what method you use, it won't be more difficult to accept than this. Then, she heard the name of a spell that made her frown subconsciously. Clone technique. Necromancy system, 8th ring spell. Greet spread his hands. He looked at the princess without flinching and said in a firm and powerful voice. Use this spell to clone a body and then dissect it to get the most detailed information. Heart, blood, bones, muscles, everything can be seen clearly. Princess Norrell opened her lips and closed them tightly. If it were anyone else, mentioning necromancy in front of her would probably be the consequence of being thrown out of Evermeet Island. Even if Gretel said this, all she could do was not deny it immediately. However, Gretel has something else to say. Since I don't know this spell, and I guess no one on Evergather Island can, I suggest that we invite a necromancer to come over and preside over this spell. Moreover, in view of the special situation of the eldest prince, who is of a very high level and is also affected by unknown forces, the necromancer invited must be at least a 9-ring master. Of course, the elves have to bear all costs. The reward for hiring someone, the cost of casting a spell, the cost of care. The spell cost and material cost of clone technique are very high. In order for the cut tissue to grow into a physical body, it needs to go through a complete growth process in a special container, which can take as short as 2 months and as long as more than half a year. In other words, the elves have to tolerate this necromancer for at least half a year. If you are unlucky and one cultivation fails, or if Gretel wants to cultivate a few more clones, it will take even longer. Gretel did not explain these details, but Princess Norrell could naturally understand them. She frowned and thought silently, and Gretel smiled apologetically. However, the main reason for asking the teacher to come over is that I don't have enough ability to complete this spell. Therefore, let a few legends come over to replace the teacher, and I will pay the required compensation. That's not necessary at all, Princess Norrell responded reflexively. Are you kidding me? Of course the price paid for the treatment of the eldest prince was paid by the royal family. How could little Greet be allowed to pay for it? She stood up hurriedly and smiled at Gretel. Don't worry about the cost. This must be paid for by the royal family. As for your plan, I will take it back and talk to my mother and the elders. She nodded vigorously to Gretel and left in a hurry. Greet looked at her flying skirt and clicked her tongue regretfully. To be honest, he also really wanted to have a clone to dissect. The so-called human heart is separated from the belly. Having a clone dissected and tried it is much more confident than relying on CT, MRI, and ultrasound images. However, if in order not to invite the teacher, we invite a necromancer to the island. What did you say? Ravenswamp Ecstasy? Thanks to @Scarlacy for the 2,100 starting coins. Thanks to Etjong Jiakai for the reward of 1,666 book coins. Thanks to Etchu Moliang for the reward of 1,500 starting coins. Thanks to Book Friend 202205131627388857 for the 500 starting coin reward. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Jiolan 2020. Chapter 1371. Invite the Nine-Ring Necromancer to come to the island. As soon as this proposal was announced, all the elves who heard it shook their heads. Even Elder Fahim, who had spent the longest time with Gretel and was the most tolerant towards him, subconsciously moved his shoulders when he thought about letting a Nine-Ring Necromancer set foot on the Isle of Eternal Meeting, feeling like there were bugs crawling on his back. Is there no other plan? Necromancer, well, it's best not to. The Queen, on the other hand, has more worries. To release the cloning technique once, at least a piece of flesh, 1 inch square, of the target being cloned is required. Although such a piece of meat accounts for a small proportion of the entire body, it is definitely not small. In particular, the eldest prince has been sealed for many years and is almost skinny. To break the seal and take out such a piece of flesh from him. Just thinking about being a mother makes my heart ache. Even if this piece of meat was cut out from his own heart, it would be better than cutting it off from his son's body. Let's ask a few legends to come over, please ask the necromancer, after all. Gretel sighed with regret. What a pity. If there were several cloned bodies that could be dissected, it would be very helpful for studying the condition and formulating surgical plans. Whether it's CT, MRI, or even cardiovascular angiography, compared with direct anatomy, it's a bit far behind. But no matter what, the wishes of the patient's family are still the most important. Now that the elves have made their decision, Gretel can only wait for the teacher to arrive. During this period, try to improve preliminary research. For example, gnawing through a lot of extremely complicated treatment records. More than 200 years. More than 200 years old. A patient's treatment record. And there are many 8-ring, 9-ring, legendary level treatment methods, sealing methods, and relevant feedback after each treatment. He is just a level 14 mage. There were some particularly difficult elven texts, ancient spell characters, and he still had to look them up and try to understand them at the same time. For example, studying how to complete the inspection as quickly as possible during the short period of time to unlock the seal, and at the same time, do as little harm to the eldest prince's body as possible. For example, if it is really what he thinks, how should it be treated? Spell healing? Or surgical treatment? He has never treated tetralogy of Fallout. It really hasn't been cured. This thing is the highest challenge for cardiothoracic surgery. Even if it is outside of cardiothoracic surgery, it requires extremely skilled doctors, a closely coordinated team, and the support of a strong extracorporeal circulation team. Therefore, he had better think about how to use magic to achieve therapeutic effects. He really didn't have confidence in surgery or anything. Gretel plunged into the pile of books with unprecedented enthusiasm. At least, when the teacher arrives, takes out the MRI, and understands the eldest prince's condition, he will have a treatment plan that looks reliable. After traveling thousands of miles to bring the teacher here, if he dares to say, "Actually, I still don't have any good ideas," do you believe that the teacher will beat him up? Also under great pressure is Archmage Baebo. When Gretel advanced, he failed to restart the Well of Eternity, resulting in a lack of energy in the mystery lock on Evermeet Island. He already felt very sorry. Now the teacher is really coming. When the teacher comes, I see that he has not yet produced any results, and the progress is stuck at the eternal. It will take about half a year. Believe it or not, the teacher beat him up. Moreover, he is older, higher level, and resistant to beatings. The teacher was reluctant to beat little Greet, and he was never merciless when he beat up several of their older disciples. Archmage Baebo also went into the research room and worked overtime and overtime. He has figured out the principle of producing huge energy even if the ore is left motionless. He also figured out what concentration of the element that can produce radioactivity is required to burn slowly instead of exploding. How to guide the slow burning power out, energize the magic circle, and guide the volcanic power below. He and the casters of Yangju Island finally summed up an effective plan. Now there is only one crucial link left: how to control these slow-burning forces. How to make it strengthen when it should be strengthened, weaken when it should be weakened, and stop quickly when it needs to stop. It's difficult, it's difficult. Archmage Baebo pulled out his hair in handfuls, banging, 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 and kept banging his head on the desk. It was almost possible to succeed, but he just couldn't seize the opportunity. The two senior brothers each have their own busy schedules and their own worries. Like a primary school student who is about to start school and is being nagged at home and has not yet finished his winter vacation homework, he hopes that the Lord of Thunder will come as soon as possible, but also hopes that he will come as slowly as possible. However, no matter how much they expected, the airship carrying the legendary Elder took off from Yangju Island, broke through the clouds and fog, and rushed straight into the northeastern sky. Flying across the ocean, flying over the new continent, flying over a new ocean, and finally returning with the Lord of Thunder. On this day, Greet was brought to the flying boat dock on the seaside with his neck curled up, and stood with his senior brother. In addition to the eldest brother, those who greeted Feijo were also Elder Ahmad, Elder Fahim, a legendary elder from the royal family, and Princess Noril on behalf of the Queen. Clouds and waves surged in the sky, and a huge ship with a slender body and a pair of green wings broke out of the clouds and slowly descended. Gretel followed the crowd and took a few steps back, watching the two ancient trees in front of him grow wildly, weaving a green platform, ready to receive the giant ship at any time. Watching the giant ship flapping its wings vigorously, the height is getting lower and lower, and the speed is getting slower and slower. Watching it land gently on the platform of the ancient tree, it was not disturbed at all, and even the vines on the platform did not bend downward. Watching the cabin door open, a young and handsome elf slowly stepped onto the deck, turned around and made a pleased gesture. The Lord of Thunder appeared on the deck, looked around, and smiled slightly. "Teacher! Teacher!" Gretel and Archmage Baebo concentrated on holding their breath, bowed slightly, lowered their heads, and lowered their eyes, completing the etiquette of welcoming the teacher. However, 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. They didn't hear any response, and of course, the teacher's loving slap or loving lightning ball didn't fall directly on their heads. Gretel quickly swiped away with a ghost in mind. In the welcoming team, a slender and graceful figure emerged from the crowd and stood upright in front of the Lord of Thunder. The white dress was fluttering, and a crystal flower on the temples shone softly. She looked at the Lord of Thunder with eyes that were almost greedily glued to him. And their teacher, at this moment, seemed to have no one else in his eyes. At least, they are two senior brothers. It seems that the teacher really didn't see it. Cat asks for monthly ticket. Asking for a monthly pass at the end of the month. Please give me a guaranteed monthly pass at the beginning of next month. Leave it all to me, meow. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geolan 2020. Chapter 1372. Chapter 1367. Gretel is determined not to be a light bulb. The Lord of Thunder looked at the beauty walking quickly in front of him and remained silent. In his past life, he traveled to almost every country in the world and met countless humans and non-humans. From Nevis to the Orc Kingdom, from the Orc Kingdom to the Great Wasteland, from the Great Wasteland to the Dragon Island, from the Dragon Island to the New World, and then from the New World to the Evermeet Island. However, there are only a handful of women who can leave ripples in his heart so far. Among them, there is no one who is dead, not married, who has the same position or at least is not hostile, and who has a good impression of him. Until now, there is only one, the elf princess in front of me. He stayed on Yangju Island for 10 years, and she stayed with him for 10 years. The red sleeves add fragrance, and the tea is cooked with bare hands. Find books and scrolls for him, study magic with him, and do various experiments with him. Or, lean under the tree or in front of the lamp and watch him quietly. It's not that he couldn't feel her affection, but at that time, all his thoughts were on magic. Apart from learning, research, and rapid advancement, everything else is fleeting. Later, he left Evermeet Island to pursue the opportunity to become a legend. She stayed on the island to assume the responsibility of the elf princess. This strand of emotion, like gossamer and flying catkins, was torn from his heart. But, after hundreds of years, is she still waiting? Your Excellency, the Lord of Thunder Yiren's eyes were filled with waves, and she was wrapped around him softly and densely, but her actions were not rude at all. Stand out from the crowd and salute gracefully. Thank you for coming all the way to participate in the rescue of my brother. Here, on behalf of the royal family and all the elves on Everlasting Island, I would like to express my sincere welcome and gratitude to you. She used the common etiquette for legends. The Lord of Thunder thought with some sadness. 100 years ago, she was still a little girl, just entering adulthood in elf terms, and she often pestered him to tell him about the various customs outside the island, and about the various dangers he encountered while crossing the continent. But now, he is a legend. She has not crossed this threshold yet. In the hall in public, she must observe the etiquette of treating a legend. Princess, there is no need to be polite. He smiled and returned the mage salute, while nodding calmly to the legends around him. For the sake of the friendship between the council and the elves, I am willing to travel across the ocean and participate in His Highness the Prince's treatment. Moreover, I also admire His Highness the Prince's character. While exchanging greetings, he moved forward and walked side by side with Her Royal Highness. The legends who came to greet them, as well as their descendants, naturally followed behind these two. As for Greet, who was standing by the side, he only received an ICU look from the teacher. Archmage Baebo was even worse. He was not even sure whether he got this look. But okay, no matter what, the teacher still maintained the etiquette that a legend should have. By the way, if the princess rushed over and hugged the teacher, these students. Well, it seems that I can only watch. In order to welcome the Lord of Thunder, the elf royal family had prepared a grand party. However, the Lord of Thunder was not interested in this and declined politely. He only asked to see the patient as soon as possible. According to what little Greet said in the letter, the patient was sealed in the ancient tree. It's okay if the magnetic shock can penetrate the seal. If not, you have to find a way to unlock the seal and complete the inspection as soon as possible. As for what kind of seal it is, the little guy is completely unclear. In fact, he couldn't say anything more than the word seal. He just said that he should make up some extra lessons. I don't understand anything. If I encounter a similar seal outside in the future, I won't be able to break it, and I won't be able to run away. I won't be able to get trapped in the seal. These requirements had been communicated in advance, and without any hesitation, Princess Norrell led the Lord of Thunder towards the ancient tree. At this turn, the legends who came to greet him naturally dispersed and went back to their respective residences. Only the princess was by his side, walking slowly along the corridor of the royal court, speaking in a low voice. "You're here. Was it hard on this journey?" "Fine. I know that there are flying boats traveling along the way, and there are legendary elders presiding over the flight. There is no danger, and there will be no depression. But, if you don't ask, you will always feel uneasy. How have you been over the past few years? I heard that you have become a legend. I don't know how many dangers you encountered when you took this step. Fortunately, I became a legend on Dragon Island. With those giant dragons here, no one will attack me. That's good. I heard that you went to the battlefield some time ago, facing several legends from the Holy See alone. The two walked side by side, passing through corridors and shades of trees. There was no linking arms, no hands holding each other, and there was even a distance of nearly 3 feet between the two. However, looking from behind, there was naturally a peaceful harmony. As a participant in this medical project, Greed followed far behind, keeping a distance where he could see their backs. As he walked, he silently cursed. "Hey, why did you drag me here? So awkward. I came here and I didn't know anything, I didn't understand anything, I couldn't see anything, I knew nothing about that seal. Can I stay further away, at this distance? If the teacher turns around, he can still see me." He dilly-dallied and procrastinated. Anyway, there is no fear of getting lost in the royal palace. Sometimes the person in front turns a corner and cannot see where he is going, and an elf guard pops out to show him the way. Don't be afraid if there is no one to guide you. Just lean against the wall, grab a branch or a blade of grass and ask, and you will definitely find the direction. In short, emitting spiritual power, feeling the teacher's position from a distance, etc., this kind of thing is definitely not done. Alas, why can't senior brother come and I have to fall behind? Cursing in my belly, I turned one corner after another, and the familiar old tree with a big belly was already in my sight. At this moment, a small curved door opened on the trunk of the ancient tree 1.5 meters above the ground, and the princess's white skirt was submerged in it. As for the Lord of Thunder, he has disappeared. What? You mean steps? Ladder? There is no one who can reach here, teleportation and other things, who doesn't have basic skills. Gretel muttered, found a tree trunk where the small door could be seen but would not be immediately seen by outsiders, and sat down. Go inside. Non-existent. Seeing patients. Non-existent. Leave the place to the teacher and the princess. Today, he, Gretel Nordmark, is determined not to be a light bulb. Ask for the guaranteed monthly pass for next month in advance. The cat jumped up, turned 360 degrees in the air, and swung its tail to ask for monthly votes. Thanks to it living outside time for the 600 starting coins reward. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 1373. Greet leaned against the tree outside the door and sat for 3 full hours before he saw the light door on the tree trunk open for the second time. The Lord of Thunder floated out, moved casually, and the next moment he was on the ground, waving to Gretel. Behind her, Princess Norrell said nothing, her eyes were slightly red, but she looked at the Lord of Thunder with joy and tenderness in her eyes. Gretel breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, it seems that the teacher is not exactly a straight man of steel, no, he is a straight man of lightning. No, lightning is originally folded one after another, or bifurcated. It is not born to go all the way to the end. Let's talk about the magnetic lines of force built around the electric field, which are even more arc-shaped. While thinking wildly, he stepped forward in small steps. The Lord of Thunder looked him up and down and saw that the young disciple's aura was full and lively, and his mental power was pure and pure. It was obvious that he had advanced smoothly, so he nodded with almost imperceptible satisfaction. The spell you wrote in your paper uses magnetic field changes to observe the human body. How did you come up with it? Greet almost blurted out, the MRI is written in the book, not what I thought when the words came to his lips. he quickly bit them and suddenly raised his head to look at the teacher. Wrong. This doesn't feel right. Teacher, are you trying to trick me? It's still sensitive to the influence of mental power. Not bad. The Lord of Thunder nodded slightly, with a little more satisfaction in his eyes. When he asked the question just now, he casually used a little mental shock and confusion method, for no other reason than to test his little apprentice's mental power. Now it seems that although he has not practiced any special spells, he has a kind of natural acumen, and he reacted without saying anything. Maybe it's the instinct after blending with nature? No matter what the reason is, in short, if you are sensitive enough and mentally strong enough to not be confused, that would be great. Greet sweated silently. The teacher looked calm and made it clear, I'm just a tester, so what else can a disciple do? How can you escape from the teacher's door even if you can't be beaten and can't be scolded? In addition to expressing sorrow and accusation with his eyes, he could only think quickly and come up with the excuses he had prepared before to use to excuse the teacher. Isn't this? When we were doing experiments before, it was too troublesome to explore the inside of the human body. Detection magic is too expensive and cannot be seen clearly by ultrasound, so I wanted to use a new method. After trying it a few times, I found that the magnetic force seems to be can. Try it for me. Ah. Try to show me. The Lord of Thunder simply stopped. At this time, they happened to come to a small clearing with green grass and a meandering stream that merged into a half-moon-shaped pond. There were no houses to the left or right, and no one was around. It seemed that even if the magic failed, it probably wouldn't affect anyone else. But teacher, just give me a rough demonstration and let me see how far you can control it, the Lord of Thunder said slowly. Greet glanced at him quickly, then looked at Princess Norrell next to him, and was surprised to find that with the princess around, the teacher's tone was much gentler than usual. He used to give orders directly. One word at a time, absolutely decisive, never tactful. It's so rare. Maybe you want to show your softer side in front of women who like you, so as not to scare them away directly? In that case, as a disciple, you have to save face for the teacher. If the things produced are ridiculous and outlandish, and make people feel that the student's standards are too low, the teacher will lose face, and his competitiveness in chasing girls will also be weakened. Greet swallowed, took a deep breath, and calmed down. Touching his pocket, he took out a mouse tail from the space bag, walked into the grass, and placed it on a stone by the pond. Then stretch your hands forward, clasp each other, and pull them apart little by little. The 4 fingers of your left hand are curled up with the thumb upwards. The 5 fingers of your right hand are spread out, and the fingertips should be kept at the same distance as much as possible. The left hand points forward, the fingertips sparkle with lightning, and a silver-white lightning rises steadily, circulating between the palms of the fingers. With his right hand, he carefully plucked the tailbone of the mouse a few times like a plucked instrument. The invisible force stirred up a little ripple and quietly passed through the mouse's tailbone. Probably, that's it, but the signal of what I made is very messy and complicated, and basically can't be seen clearly, so I can only ask the teacher to take action. Greet put down his hands, turned around, and reported to the teacher in a polite manner. By the way, he really tried his best to make it look like this. In the previous generation of nuclear magnetic resonance, there were too many conditions and algorithms required to obtain reliable signals. Don't say he doesn't know. Even if he knows, he can't tell. He can only hope that the teacher will figure it out on his own. The Lord of Thunder kept staring ahead, with various runes and lines flowing rapidly on the blue monocle. When his disciple turned around, he hummed softly and took 2 steps forward with his hands behind his back. The level of controlling lightning is still too low. Is this a 6-ring lightning chain? Your senior sister can already control a 7-ring lightning spell into an extremely stable one at your level. Yes, I will practice hard in the future. Gretel lowered his head in repentance and cursed in his heart, "Teacher, senior sister Philby, she specializes in thunder and lightning spells, and controlling her to this level is the proper meaning of the question. I specialize in medical treatment, and I only use electrical magic for one purpose. You ask me to reach her level, which is too high. If electricity is not strong enough, magnetism is not strong enough. If you cannot spread a strong enough magnetic field, you cannot smooth out the original magnetic influence in the world, and the results will be interfered with." Gretel suddenly raised his head, met the Lord of Thunder's eyes, and then nodded repeatedly. "That's right, the reason why nuclear magnetic resonance requires a strong magnetic field is to eliminate interference from external magnetic fields." Unexpectedly, the teacher even felt this. If you want to spread a strong enough magnetic field, you need to be at least 8 rings, if you don't have enough control, you need 9 rings. Well, the 8th ring is actually right in front of him. If he advances one more time, he can theoretically use the 8-ring magic. So, he is almost able to do a hand rub MRI. Greet looked at the teacher expectantly. The Lord of Thunder snorted noncommittally. "As for the control of the magnetic field, it is really bad, not even as good as a 5-ring mage. You have to make up for these basics." Gretel lowered his head and was speechless. The Lord of Thunder half turned around, his eyes fell on Princess Norrell, and his eyes quickly softened. "It's a joke for you. I still need to study the spell carefully, and the 2 little guys also need to give you some guidance. Then, I'll take my leave now. Can I come visit?" Princess Norrell subconsciously took a half step forward. The Lord of Thunder smiled and nodded. "Welcome anytime." As he spoke, he waved to Greet, who couldn't help but fly up with him, into a ball of white flowing clouds, and flew down the mountain. Sitting on the clouds, I heard the Lord of Thunder ask, "When we get to your place, show me what you learned and how well you learned it." "Gretel, help. The teacher wants to check the homework. It's February 1st. Cat asks for a guaranteed monthly ticket." Rolling, shaking paws, waving pink flesh pads, "Please vote for me. All to the cats." You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 1374. Item teleportation. I did not learn. Waterspout. I did not learn. Delayed burst fireball. Let me give it a try. Greet summoned a string of fire beads and hit the target marked by the Lord of Thunder, 3 rings from near to far, a rabbit running all over the ground, and a white bird flying chirpingly. Of course, it's all phantoms. However, the rabbit's eyes are alert, and the white bird's flight is agile and turns smoothly. At a glance, they are no different from the living ones. Gretel's fire beads accurately hit 3 rings and exploded simultaneously at the moment the rings dissipated. It hit the rabbit, was swallowed by the rabbit, and suddenly exploded. The body of the white rabbit swelled and was reflected into a red rabbit, like a rabbit lantern carried during the Lantern Festival. After 3 breaths, it suddenly exploded. As for the white bird, the fireball followed several turns, but failed to hit the white bird, and finally exploded after grazing its body. The white bird flew several circles around the place where the fire exploded, screaming high and low, as if it was mocking. Gretel stood aside with his hands tied, not daring to raise his head. Delayed explosion fireball is the signature of the 7th level spell of the energy evocation system. It ranks first on the list of the spell book given by the teacher. Many 7th ring mages, without practicing any other attack magic, can surely become high-level fighters with just one hand of delayed explosive fireball. The Lord of Thunder sighed. "Do you know where the gap is?" Even if you have never encountered any major dangers until now, you still have to be able to defend yourself and save your life. You must practice these magics well. Greet nodded like a pound of garlic. Next, he showed off the force field prison, used as a partition during the experiment, the projection technique, which can only release healing spells, the portable hospital technique, the wizard's mansion technique. The Lord of Thunder watched silently without saying a word. Even when he saw that the mage's mansion had been turned into a hospital, with emergency rooms, rescue rooms, and operating rooms, and several invisible servants pushing carts back and forth, he didn't even twitch the corners of his mouth. What kind of temperament does little Greet have? Does he still know? When I was at level 5, I asked him how to add sterilization and disinfection functions to the mage's cabin. Now at level 13, isn't it a matter of course to turn the mage's mansion into a portable hospital? Besides, every time the mage's mansion is summoned, it will change according to the owner's thoughts. When it comes time to really need a luxury home, it's not like you can't change. In the end, what the Lord of Thunder saw was Gretel's transformation technique and a series of battles in the transformed state. Transform into a bear, run, crash, add defenses to yourself, and throw healing spells while running wildly. Transform into a leopard, run, jump, climb, fight with claws, spell defense, spell-assisted acceleration, and throw healing spells. Become a silver dragon? The Lord of Thunder raised his head to the sky and looked at the two silver dragons, one large and one small, rolling and chasing each other on the blue waves, flapping their wings and spitting breath at each other. Although in his eyes, playfulness was more important than combat, the flying speed of the little silver dragon, the agility of turning, the speed and accuracy of firing spells, and the strength of its breath were all quite good. The important thing is that he has persisted for 10 minutes, 20 minutes, half an hour? The Lord of Thunder was already quite satisfied. Silver dragons are no different from other species in that their spell defense and normal attack defense are naturally stronger. Being able to transform into a silver dragon and last for half an hour is pretty good. In most cases, it is enough to save his life. Moreover, among the dragon clan, there are many clans with whom Silver Dragon has good relations. It is very likely that if one of them fights, a group of them will come back to take revenge. Generally speaking, even if you have to choose to provoke the dragon clan, the Silver Dragon will not be chosen first. However, when Gretel finished his transformation and fell down panting, the Lord of Thunder still scolded him bloody. It's too slow to transform into a silver dragon. The transformation technique is for you to save your life. Who asked you to stay in a daze for such a long time and then transform? The flying speed is not fast enough. The steering is not flexible enough. Cyrilla is not fighting you seriously. If she shows half her ability, she can knock you down in an instant. Spells. Spells. Dragons are a race that is good at casting spells. If you use the body of a silver dragon to cast spells, there shouldn't be any obstacles. Why are the spells you use so single? So inflexible? Why do you put so much effort into breathing? You are a transformed silver dragon, not a real silver dragon. Breathing will only weaken your physical strength and shorten your transformation time. Magic. Use magic. Gretel was trained so hard that he couldn't even lift his head. Cyrilla looked on with a smile at first. After watching for a while, she couldn't help but jump over and hugged Greet's arm, shaking it back and forth. Oh, it's okay. Gretel just needs to become a silver dragon, fly with me, and play with me. It'll be fine if he can't beat me. When he advances again, he can become you're a young man, aren't you? Gretel. Lord of Thunder. Alas, it is really difficult to teach a disciple a lesson in front of his little girlfriend. The key is that when it comes to turning into a silver dragon, although the Lord of Thunder is a legend, he may not really have the authority of Saryra. After all, he is really a silver dragon. Fortunately, in the next part of the transformation technique, the Lord of Thunder regained some face and taught Gretel a good lesson regarding how to save power as much as possible and quickly and flexibly use the eyes/ears/scales of the silver dragon to achieve the purposes of observation, listening, defense, etc. The Lord of Thunder really shared a lot of experience with Gretel. Previously, Sarah could only say "this is what I do," and just think about it. Elder Fahim's description mostly started from how to understand nature and how to get close to nature. Greet has been groping on his own. He has not even thought about many small skills, let alone mastering them. Thank God, he finally has someone to ask for advice. It's better to have a teacher by your side. Greet spent a nervous day, handed in the next study and research plan to the teacher, and got through with luck. The next step is to watch the teacher go away and rush to the senior brother. Teacher is so strict. Cyrilla stood side by side with him, watching the Lord of Thunder jump into a bolt of lightning and disappear, and quickly stuck out his tongue. I think you have done a good job. There are still so many things he is not satisfied with, and there are so many things he wants you to change, really. Don't be like this. The teacher is also doing it for my own good. Gretel looked like he would survive the disaster, but he just didn't collapse to the ground. Now, it's senior brother's turn to suffer. Archmage Baebo, no. It's February 1st. Ask for a guaranteed monthly pass. Cat is only 9th on the fantasy monthly ticket list. This ranking is not stable at all. Everyone, please help the cat to rush again. Please tie your monthly ticket to a cat teasing stick, pick it up and wave it in front of the cat. The cat will fight hard. Monthly ticket. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 1375. Chapter 1370. Diamonds are burned. It is so difficult to study congenital heart disease. After having his homework checked by the teacher, Gretel devoted himself to learning and research with greater enthusiasm. Must work hard. Speed up. Figure out a treatment plan, or at least have a preliminary treatment plan. Absolutely, no matter what, you cannot fall behind the teacher. With this idea in mind, Gretel reduced his practice of transformation and combat, and spent more time studying and researching magic. Study, research, analyze, read information, and understand the reasons for the failure and success of predecessors. Half a month later, when the teacher came to check his homework again, he was able to try the limited wishing technique under the teacher's care. I need a pig with tetralogy of Fallout. I need a pig with tetralogy of Fallout. I need a pig with tetralogy of Fallout. Greet faced the 1-month-old healthy piglet that had been washed cleanly, with its feet in the air, and released from the tranquility technique on the experimental table in front of him. He clasped his hands and kept thinking in his heart. The magic materials in the magic circle were reduced to ashes one after another, and the glowing magic light rose from above. Finally, the soybean-sized, sparkling diamond in the center of the magic circle also disintegrated into powder, dimmed, and disappeared. A piece of magic light quietly gathered along Gretel's thoughts and rushed into the piggy's body. How about it? Sarah's head immediately stretched out. The silver dragon girl had been watching for a long time, not daring to breathe. Although she was heartbroken when the diamond shattered and disappeared, she did not reach out to grab it. At this moment, Cyrilla looked at Gretel, and then looked at the little pig eagerly. Delicate and tender, pink and plump, with ridged watermelon lines on its body, it shows that it is a newly caught wild boar. A pig worth a diamond. If it succeeds, that's fine. If it doesn't, wouldn't it be a waste of a diamond? Magical research is really expensive. Greet was also trembling a little with heartache. The starting material for a limited wish-making spell is a diamond, at least as big as a soybean, with requirements for purity and transparency. Because the price is too expensive, it is not within the coverage of magic-free materials, so it needs to be paid for in a down-to-earth manner. If we make 10 animal models, even if each one is successful, 10 diamonds will be consumed. 10 diamonds of this size, with some gold, silver and other precious stones, are enough to set a set of jewelry for Cyrilla. Learning magic costs a lot of money, it's like throwing diamonds into the fire. After struggling for a long time, you can only see a small flame. He was distressed about the materials, and Elder Fahim, who was watching over his experiments, and the Lord of Thunder, who came regularly to check his homework, were quite satisfied. The two looked at each other, and the Lord of Thunder nodded slightly. Not bad, at least there's no backlash. Even if the limited wishing spell is not a big wishing spell, the backlash is quite serious, or in other words, among the 7 ring spells, it is considered serious. Otherwise, Gretel would not need to dispatch 2 legendary guardians for his first trial of limited wishing. And their requirements for Gretel don't necessarily have to achieve perfect results or anything like that. As long as there is no backlash, that's good luck. Now it seems that at least the initial requirements have been met. As for the effect of the limited wishing spell, well, at least the little pig is lying peacefully and looks like he is not dead yet. Do you want an autopsy? Elder Fahim asked Greet softly. Gretel took a deep breath, shook his head, and took a step forward. No need. Use magic to detect for now. He picked up the little pig and released a round of detection magic. As soon as the X-ray was scanned, Gretel's brows furrowed tightly. This heart shadow is so strange, it feels different from the image he simulated of right ventricular hypertrophy and pulmonary artery segment stenosis. After another CT scan, Greet frowned and squatted on the ground with his head in his hands. The pulmonary artery segment was not stenotic, but instead became absent and combined with patent ductus arteriosus. There is a ventricular septal defect, but the problem is that it is also combined with an atrial defect. Aortic straddling cannot be said to be absent, but what is more troublesome is that the right ventricle seems to be divided into 2 chambers. What a mess! How did his limited wish-making technique end up like this? It seems that the result was not very successful, it didn't look right. Gretel reported pitifully. He summoned a row of silent phantoms and explained to the teacher and Elder Fahim the normal heart, the heart he wanted to get, and the heart he actually got using magic. So, what I made is not what I want. The 2 legends exchanged a quick glance. Elder Fahim repeated his sentences and wanted to comfort Gretel, but the Lord of Thunder said calmly. Then do you know what your problem is? You probably know, my description of the results may not be clear. When he was casting the spell, he was thinking about tetralogy of Falat instead of the very clear how the right ventricle should be like, what the pulmonary artery should be like, how the aorta should be like, and how the interventricular septum should be like. Without extremely clear direction, the magic works itself out. Don't mention a heart that's malformed in the wrong way. Even if it's a mass of rotten flesh, that's normal. In fact, for the limited wishing technique, a deformed heart that came out, but not the kind he wanted, was already very lucky, and the magic was very flattering. Now that you know it, why don't you try again? Okay. Gretel went to prepare for the experiment dejectedly. Pick up the failed piggy and send it back to a separate pig cage to be well raised. Redraw the magic circle, relay the magic materials, catch a clean and healthy piglet, weigh it, check it, record its physical condition, and recast the spell. This time, Greet had prepared a 3-dimensional model of the heart with tetralogy of Falat in advance in the meditation core. From the beginning of casting the spell, you must gather your energy and project your own model into the spell model. I need a pig with a heart that matches this characteristic. This time, the magic light rose up and rushed into the piggy's body. Gretel watched in fear until all the magic light disappeared, then he quickly pounced on. It should be okay this time, right? It should be okay, right? Unfortunately, the piggy's heart rate rose rapidly, and then dropped rapidly. Once the blood pressure dropped to the bottom, the piglet died. It failed again this time. Gretel sighed sadly. The result this time was even more tragic than last time. Last time, the little pig was still alive. This time, it was all over? There's no use staring at the piggy when trying to figure out what's wrong. Greet apologized to the two division commanders, carried the piglet into the operating room, and began to dissect it directly. The chest opened, and a stream of blood rushed out. Then, the culprit appeared under the shadowless lamp. The junction between the aorta and the heart is leaking, leaking, leaking. Ahem, so when using the limited wishing technique, do we still have to consider how long the heart will be? The cat is crying and looking up information. There are no papers on animal models related to tetralogy of Falat Unki. Fortunately, Teacher Shu helped to find English papers, praise to Teacher Shu.